again. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Operator Sigret, at your service. Code received.
Wow.
Executing commands.
Dark Ranger, but it's dark.
오퍼레이터 섹션에서 내재된 로스트 테크놀로지는 액세스할
Oh, she's so hot. No! Why is she hot? Arr! 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 Did I say 5 howls? 5 howls, right? 5 stars. She's hot.
세크레트를 맡기며 숨겨진 기능을
또 적을 처치했다면 바로 이어서 3스킬을 사용할 수 있습니다.
What? I'm sorry, she's... I think she's broken.
적 전체를 공격.
Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. So in the preview, in the video, the teaser, you saw some of my reactions to Operator Sigret. Now, I waited on purpose for these initial thoughts instead of like peddling my just speculation, you know, how much damage mods do they have. I wanted to wait till the data mine was actually released to be able to discuss her and if I think that she's actually good. Like how I usually do in these videos, I have like some predictions and, you know, my thoughts on where they'll be used. And ML Sigret, even on the video, it definitely impressed me. After the data mine was released, I'm still impressed. So let's go through this. First things first is when I did search up Operator Sigret, I got this, so that was pretty funny. It's like Operator Sigret. I was like Operator Cigarette. I actually wanted to see, maybe that's a real thing. But I didn't bother. No time to click it. First things first is that she's very attractive. She's very beautiful. She's not like the hot girl that like maybe you're in high school and then there's a hot girl, but this one's got like got the cold stare that you'll never be good enough for her kind of thing. But then you're still really attractive. So it's okay, it might be revealing too much about my past or something. Anyways, Operator Sigret looks really good. I mean, we saw the preview during the episode 3 kind of like preview where she was like in a sketch mode. And remember that in that preview, Last Rider Crow was like fully voiced and we saw like animations and like Crow code number 00, like we heard that kind of stuff. And then we had like this kind of silhouette but like already polished art of ML Luluka. And then we had the draft kind of like drawings like these for Sigret. So it is good that she was like they're releasing these like teasers and stuff like in line of, you know, how they're releasing heroes, and this one was for sure. I think there was a lot of speculation on, you know, what's going to be next. I held my speculations to grounded facts. I was like, yeah, I think ML Sigret is the next one. You guys who watch my videos or even come to my streams, you guys know that was my thoughts, and I'm glad it was her. I also did sort of predict that she would be a cleaver. Well, not fully. She's not a cleaver in of herself, but I definitely think that she's gonna be more useful in a cleave deck. So if you have a full cleave roster, I think she's gonna be a very powerful tool in your arsenal. But outside of that, I think she's gonna be a bit lacking. I'll talk about the pros and cons, of course. But I mean, oh man, I have to say, like, if Smilegate, any of the devs catch wind of this video, and I mean, it's not just me, I know a lot of people want this, but please release an art book. Release an art book, like seriously, like even just the draft, like even though it's like the lines are not like fully finished, it reminds me of some of these old Metal Gear Solid like concept art and stuff like that, which is really cool. I love looking at that stuff, and you guys are like, this is like super cool. Like, you know, you own all this stuff anyway, and you'll make big bucks. Trust me, if you plan to release any more art books in the future. This is just super cool. I really want one. Those art books are usually very expensive, upwards of like, you know, $300-400. Yeah, so you gotta make big money. Take that work, publish it. It's really good. So let's talk about her kit. So Operator Sigret, she's a ranger it's really funny when we were all predicting, and I think it's a fun part, I guess, when Hero is released, predicting, you know, what she will be. You know, you get the people who are just like, oh no, she's gonna be a soul weaver or whatever. And honestly, there is no pattern now. I mean, this is why it's kind of funny to joke about it. It's a meme. It is. I mean, like, you know, Chloe was a warrior, and then Maid Chloe is a soul weaver. Haste is a thief. Blood Moon Haste is a soul weaver, etc., etc. And sometimes it's, you know, the exact same, like Last Rider Crow and Crow, both knights. So, you know, it's like up in the air. You never know. She's a ranger. I think it's like kind of like a weird ranger meta. Not even saying meta, but really just like a lot of rangers being pumped out recently. Like, and I kind of, obviously I'm jumping the timeline a bit, but like some of the big ones, you know, SSB and then Cerise and then Landy and then Flan, and then now she's a ranger as well. A lot of limited ranger artifacts we talked about in the past that are really influential in the gameplay, and she's a ranger, so it's kind of interesting. Although I don't think she'd really need to use any of the big ranger artifacts. Anyways, I'm going a bit farther than I wanted to talk about. But so Operator Sigret, we don't have any 5-star ranger that's a Libra. So this is the first one we get to see in terms of the skill. Someone told me that Nemesis, I think that's how you pronounce it, the fire 3-star, is a Libra. But obviously you wouldn't see the stats like right away. You'd have to do the math, like the 6% gain for a 6-star versus a 3-star. But as you see there, 1079 attack, so not hitting that 1.1k. Health is at 5.5, speed 115, defense is 564, crit rate is at 27%, which is very high, very nice, and 160 crit damage, so 10% in the awakening. Imprint concentration is at 18%, which if you do somehow get either multiple ML cigarettes or you have the ice ones to imprint her, that is about 200 more attack on her base, like 200 more attack tacked on to your build. So whatever you build her as, if you do get her, whatever you build her as, or you know, testing out like stats, you can tack on another 200 if you have imprint up to 18% triple S. 115 speed is very, very good, and then like I said, the crit rate and crit damage is also very good. In this in some damage mod tests and just like damage calculation tests, I use the Judge Kisei as my base. Judge Kisei with a little bit less attack. Speed is, I think it's identical actually. I think it's identical speed. Crit rate is the same, and crit damage is actually lower than ML Sigret. So my my calculations for like what kind of ML Sigret, if I do get her, what can I build, is actually very close to what J Kisei stats are. So you want to consider that if you want to you know, maybe mock build her. If you own Mui, Mui is the same star sign as J Kisei, so very similar stats in terms of the damage stats, not talking about like the defense and the health. So let's move on. First things first that they showed, these are all screenshots captured from their video as well. First thing they show is the S2, which is the big opening skill. The big opening skill. So batters the enemy with a scythe, grants extra turn when the enemy is defeated, penetrates defense by 50%, and then or 100% when the target is granted a barrier. So right away, I think I mean, this is like, I think direct counter or direct meta balance to the predominant FCC meta. Last Rider Crow is a huge influence right now in the game, especially like RTA everywhere from top to bottom, lowest tier RTA. If you have Last Rider Crow, he's one of the most broken heroes right now. With how the frenzy is changing though, his influence is still going to be big, but it just won't be as big as he was before. And when I say that, it's just like a slightly deducted points on anyone who uses max HP true damage. But regardless, I think this is mainly an FCC sort of counter, which I think, I mean, other than you stripping the barrier, it was really hard to just go through the FCC barrier because it can be very fat, especially with the I-90 gear. So I think this is a direct counter to that. So there's 30% raw damage here. I haven't seen much shift in terms of Mola damage in a very, very long time. Like we have like, you know, like 50%, you know, extra damage in the Mola itself in like heroes like I think Charlotte, I think Cdom has like something like 40%, and Ice Sigret has something like 40 to 50% as well in raw Mola damage. Haven't seen that shift too much. I guess they're just trying to adjust it through the modifiers itself. Regardless, just saying that you're investing in 30% more damage if you do +5, and of course she being a DPS and mainly a single target nuke, I think yes, you do definitely need to +5 that. And we'll talk about the damage on this in a bit. I have definitely have some thoughts on it, and it is a pro and is also a con in her kit for sure. The S3 is an absolutely packed skill, absolutely packed. So I mean the way that they kind of promoted her, advertised her, how to use her is honestly, you know, you go through, you kill someone, and then you get another turn, and you go straight to the S3. Most likely you're going to. So realistically, I mean, they're looking into like FCC, let's say on a defense or even an RTA draft. If somehow Operator Sigret gets through, gets an attack buff, kills one of the heroes, then her setup for the S3 can strip the barrier for the rest. So the barrier becomes both the killing, I guess, the killing trigger for the S2, but then you can strip it to set up for some other stuff with the S3. So the S3, it says calls in drone to attack all enemies 75% up to 100% with the skill enhancement, of course. 100% to decrease buff duration by 1 turn before decreasing combat readiness by 20%. Increases attack of all allies by 2 turns. So it means that if they're on barrier, if they're on immunity, you'll be able to strip it. Now of course that has to bypass the resistance check. That will always be a level of RNG that you cannot combat unless there is a skill that says ignore effect resistance. But it's still very good. It's still very good. You can't complain about that. Ideally, if you do strip it, you get also a decreased combat range, so CR pushback by 20%. Not as potent as someone like a Basara, which is 30%, but her being a ranger and also already high damage, and to be able to do this, to strip and also to push back is already really good. 20% CR pushback is already insane. It's an AoE attack as well, so it can push up CDOM, which is what they also, you know, promoted there. Regardless, even if you don't have a CDOM used and she goes in, this 20% CR pushback usually means that another fast follow-up can take place. The other thing is that it increases attack for all allies for 2 turns, including herself, right? So this will also enable her to heal more on the S1 when we get to that, because her attack would be higher and remain high. So in the showcase, they use Oxloth. Now, I don't think it has to be one-dimensional like that. I think if that's the case, then Operator Sigret would be a very nice arena cleaving tool, and that's it. I think there probably is going to be another way to use it. I was thinking about like, you know, Athletica, if they have ML Crow, you still proc the barrier, right? Or someone like Mui. Mui can be like Mui into CDOM. Mui does AoE attack buff. It strips, but it's AoE, so it can cause ML Crow to have his barrier again. CDOM push up ML Sigret. You know, there's a lot of stuff, and when you start playing with cleave decks, I think there's a lot of really cool things you can do, and CR manipulation is a huge one. For her to have this is insanely good. If you do soul burn it, which I probably don't think you need to, you increase the buff duration by 1 more turn. So 3 turn attack buff if you absolutely need it. I don't think it's like necessary, to be honest. But you have it. right? There's only 20% raw damage in the Mola here, so relatively it's going to be a weaker AoE skill than someone let's say like that's a dedicated AoE cleaver, like an RB or Earth Vildred, Pavel, stuff like that, which have like more Mola focused into that damage for the AoE. This one is like, you know, it's a nice to have, and actually it's not even that weak. We'll get into the data, the mods in a bit. Here's a snippet of the S3, but you saw in the preview that I put in the video, but you know, you can watch her preview video as well. S3 animation is beautiful, very good. I mean, now they're going for full color. Feels bad for like the original like heroes where the S3 has like a black background. Now it's like full color with like CGI, like crazy camera angles and stuff like that. It's insane actually. Very, very good production value. And then the S1 is attacks the enemy with the scythe before healing the ally with the lowest health. So it acts like Rod, but the amount recovered increases proportion to the caster's attack. So this is caster's attack post attack buff, right? So what I was talking about the S3, if you don't get stripped, you still have an attack buff. So if you go Oxlots, she kills with the S2, goes in the S3, push back enemies, strips them, your CDOM goes up, you know, you get another CR boost, and yada yada yada. If you don't get stripped your attack buff, then your attack is higher, so therefore your heal is also higher. Here's a little preview of it. Again, I mean, you could deduct this. We do have the data mine mods for how much healing you get. In this scenario, she is on portrait, which does not affect the healing, so it's not damage dealt, it's rather just attack, but she does have the attack buff, as you can see on the screen. So 1.8k, almost 1.9. I think that's fairly solid, especially the fact that it is based on her attack and not, you know, reliant on the team that you have. Like, it's not based on their max HP, right? So in a cleave comp, if you're using a squishy kind of team, having healing based on skilling on someone's attack is sometimes better than like something like skilling based on max health. Just the data mined on the mods itself. The S1 is a 1x mod with a POW of 1, so very standard S1. Power recovered health is 0.3 per caster's attack, so about 30% of the caster's total attack. So that means, you know, after the attack buff, etc., you get about 30% of that. Wait, what's the, hold on, just double check here. So yeah, it's another 30% raw damage on the S1. I personally think if you're using her for a cleave deck, you probably will not need to enhance this, so it makes her relatively cheap to enhance. You don't need this since the damage is okay, but I think if you're just doing it for the healing, of course, just don't worry about the damage. I think if people are gonna use her like fully, they will Mola it anyway. I mean, every bit counts, right? 30% more damage means 30% quicker that the enemy goes down. So I mean, it makes sense to enhance it. S2, the skill Annihilation. This is the defense penetration skill. This one, 4-turn cooldown, as you can see. So it's actually quite a long time. You do get an extra turn if you kill. So I mean, in Cleave, the thing about Cleave is just like you want to kill your enemies as quick as possible. You're not meant to sustain it, which then it kind of makes the turn cooldown kind of moot, unless of course, like, you know, there was one target left, but like low threat, like maybe a healer is left alive, someone like Rowana or whatever, which is predominantly on arena defense right now. Very high chance that she's there. But it's a 0.8 attack rate, and a POW of 1. Now, to do a comparison, I did pull up people who would, you know, immediately you would want to compare to. Watcher Shuri right now has 100% defense penetration skill, which is his S3. Very good, you know, one-shot anything, almost anything with just an attack buff. The thing is that Watcher Shuri wouldn't need a barrier to enable the 100%. He always has 100%. So this is where Operator Sigret will start getting a bit of a shift. Wachishiri has speed imprint release, so you know, for full cleave comp, way more, I would say, more predictable to use. But he doesn't get another turn. He doesn't set up like Operator Sigret. So definitely, like, you know, we could compare the damage, but in terms of like roll, completely different, like night and day difference. The mod on Wachishiri's Ash3, the defense penetration skill is 0.8 as well for the attack rate, and 0.95 POW, so slightly lower than Operator Sigret. And that Operator Sigret also has, again, self-attack imprint, and Wachishiri doesn't have that. I think it's his crit rate, if I remember correctly. And even if it was crit rate, you probably wouldn't use it. You want the speed anyway. Wachishiri has lower base attack and also does have lower crit damage than Operator Sigret, which has 10% more. So no matter what, how you cut it, I think they have the exact same damage mola, like raw damage mola, so 30% on their defense penetration skill. So no matter how you cut it, Operator Sigret has the stronger defense penetration skill, except it requires a barrier. On the Ash3 Obliterate, it is at a 1.1 times mod, 1.1 times attack rate, and 1.1 times POW. That is comparable to someone that's more predominant in the Cleavy realm, like Arbiter Vildred. Arbiter Vildred has a 1.04 times mod for the Ash3, and 0.85. This is not a soul burn. RB gets, you know, more damage if you have full focused, and if you soul burn, he's a dedicated cleaver. He's a dedicated cleaver. But Operator Sigret has higher mods right off the bat, though. So those are the mods, but then again, she has lower mola, so lower raw damage, since this has one for the cooldown, which will only make it 4-turn cooldown, which is still a very long time, by the way. So her cooldowns are actually very, very kind of like, it doesn't, I mean, it's long, it makes sense, but like she won't be turn cycling a lot. And then two of the mola upgrades are for the effect chance itself. So again, it's not a pure cleaving skill, but just to give you a rough idea of the damage, it won't be super bad. It won't be super bad, that's for sure. And then the very last thing is just, yeah, I mean, the art on her is fantastic. I was just mesmerized by the entire video, but if you haven't watched that video, definitely check it out. I like her background story too, and then them talking about her eyes, like something about like her being like more innocent and more curious. I was like, oh man, so beautiful, but it's those eyes, man. It's like yeah, it is. I want to talk about her builds. So these are like very, very low, you know, what do you call it, like stat requirements. Okay, so this one that you're seeing on screen right now, it has a 4.2k attack. The attack increase percent, I upped it to 10%. That is roughly what an Oxlots would give. Now this is, I would say that probably this would be more fitting for some damage calculations if you're hitting arena defenses, because I mean, you're not 100% guaranteed if you're drafting her in RTA that Shiva makes it through, or your Oxlots makes it through, or whoever has the 10% increase. But regardless, I'm giving her an attack buff. No elemental advantage, just in case, but of course elemental advantage gives you 10% more damage. Just keep that in mind. 10% more damage is huge, especially when you're talking about such hard-hitting skills. So for example, if you're gonna use the S2 into Ruel, that's gonna be elemental advantage, so the Ruel is dead. More likely than not, she's gonna be dead. Portrait of Savior probably will be her best in slot. I think people were saying, oh, use the Wall of Order, but I think there's too much RNG involved. Even presuming that your opponents are all barriered with FCC and all on immunity, 8 buffs doesn't guarantee 100% increased attack buff proc rate. I probably wouldn't rely on it. myself. I think Portrait is more standard, so I'm going to use Portrait here for the example. The 4.2k 315 crit damage is what my J-Kisei is at. It's relatively simple to achieve. Relatively, I speak that. That means it's on an attack boot, it's slow, it's reliant on an Oxalot's push. You can see the S2 damage is with Portrait, of course, no elemental advantage with increased attack. The damage calculations that I'm showing is including 16% damage reduction from Adamant Shield, 20% damage reduction from an Aureus. Okay, so this is post Adamant Shield, post Aureus. S2 damage, the defense penetration skill. This is presuming that they have barrier. Okay, it does require barrier for this kind of damage. 33,215. And then of course defense wouldn't cut into that because it's 100% defense penetration. If you do turn off the barrier with the exact same stats with defense, with Aureus and Adamant Shield, it does go to unusable levels. All right, unusable levels. Like you wouldn't nuke a knight with it. You wouldn't nuke Ruel with it. You wouldn't actually succeed in killing them, I think. This is where I feel that she kind of loses the spotlight. When using her, it's really an investment into taking out Fallen Cecilia. Now, Fallen Cecilia had been pretty meta ever since her release. So I don't think she's going away that quick. So that means Operator Sigret probably wouldn't leave that quick as well. The fact is that if someone doesn't have a Fallen Cecilia on their defense team, it makes them vulnerable to everything else. So it's not like there could be players now that's gonna build to counter Operator Sigret with Fallen Cecilia in mind, as in like more HP. Even more HP, because defense penetration, you don't need to stack the defense. Maybe they just focus all on HP. I can see that happening as kind of like a you swap your effective HP or EHP to higher HP, lower defense. You still roughly get the same thing, but at least then you mitigate anyone who ignores defense, which is probably something that we will see, but maybe only in arena defense, since the frenzy changes for RTA I think are gonna shift builds slightly, if it's not shifting already. This next one I wanted to preview, just to toggle. It's a 3.6k attack, 280 crit damage. This one is one I also built using Judge Kisei as a model. This one is also fairly easy to achieve. The only reason why I went with a lower attack, higher crit damage, is that this one is at 230 speed. I wanted to test this one out because I feel that if she's slow like J-Kisei, I'd be using her less. I'm thinking in terms of like RTA, right? If I'm drafting them, I'm trying to pinch them into, let's say they drafted a Fallen Cecilia, and I have Operator Sigret, and I have, let's say, a Broman or a Basar, and it's like the right circumstance. I want them to be pinched in a corner that, they can't just ban my Oxalots, and then therefore, I have no speed and I have no turn. So 230 speed, 3600 attack, but it is still assuming that 10% with the attack increase for Oxalots though. I'm keeping that there. But 280 crit damage is what I can get. And on Portrait, you can see the S2 there obviously significantly drops. You're losing a lot of crit damage, you're losing attack, but it's still very solid. Now this is again presuming they do have a barrier. You do need this. Once it becomes a 50% defense penetration, it's not gonna affect knights too much. So if you're taking it straight into like some kind of like, Ice Crow, Adventurer Roz, she's not going to be very too effective there. You might be ending up using her as like kind of like a chip in the armor kind of hero, and then or just an opener. So like the AOE, so the dispel, pushback, AOE attack buff, setting up for C-Dom or something like that. That might be the way you'd use her if they don't have a barrier, which is still very deadly because you have CR pushback, you have AOE attack buff. So where does this leave me in terms of, do I think she's worth it? Right now, I'm trying to push myself into playing more Cleave. I've played Epic 7 for a year and a half, almost 2 years, without Oxlots, no Athletica, no reason to build Cleave. And cleaving is really fun. It's its own kind of strategy in and of itself. Yes, it may not be super effective in higher end RTA because gear check and just strategy involved. But I have seen legend cleavers still cleave, maybe low legend, but so I would say this, like if you're invested into cleavers, I think she's a must-have. She's a must-have. But if you're not, I don't think she can fit the bruiser meta well enough. You won't be able to get enough stats into her to make her effective as like a FCC counter bruiser. Like you can't, it's almost impossible. I don't think so, at least. I never played around with the stats and the gear. But that's my thinking of it. So if you do have a strong cleave deck and you want to invest into your cleave deck and the variety, I think she's a very solid option. Again, I think just everything packed. The S1 healing is kind of like a nice to have, but it's like it just brings a little bit of sustain to your cleaving comp. It won't be super effective though, I think long term, but it's better than nothing, right? I think if she brought a debuff by the time she gets the S1 turn, it'd probably be too late again for the cleaving deck at least. Anyways, I think those are all my thoughts on Operator Sigret. Again, I think fantastic art, awesome 3D animation, voice acting awesome, and then I think she does have actual potential and actual use right now. I don't think Fallen Cecilia is gonna leave anytime. Fallen Cecilia has just such a solid kit. I don't think she's gonna be looking forward to a developer buff anytime soon. She's gonna remain the same, and anyone who has FCC I think will build her as one of their priority heroes. So therefore I think Operator Sigret does have a play in the meta. It's just that if you're a bruiser type player, I don't think she's the right investment. Someone like Little Queen Charlotte right now post developer buff, Landy probably, those kind of DPS will probably give you more bang for buck. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I'm gonna end the video here. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.